The polished crowd in the rooftop restaurant murmured like a well-tuned engine, a symphony of crystal and cultured laughter beneath the stars. The man at the central table was the undisputed conductor of this small, expensive world. His suit cost more than the monthly rent for every employee present, a fact he wore as comfortably as his arrogantly tilted chin. He was celebrating a deal, something involving orbital mining rights, and his voice carried. His companions, sleek and attentive, hung on his every word. Their waiter, a young man with tired eyes, presented the dessert menu. The millionaire waved it away without looking. "No," he announced, "not to the waiter, but to the table, to the room. What this place needs is atmosphere, music." His gaze swept the space and landed on the small, unused grand piano in the corner. Then it traveled to the woman clearing a nearby table. She was the only server not scrambling to attend to his party. She moved with a quiet efficiency, her posture straight, her hands steady as she stacked fine china. He snapped his fingers in her direction. "You, girl." The room's hum dipped. She paused, turned. Her eyes were the gray of lunar regolith, calm and depthless. "Go on," the millionaire said, a generous smile on his lips that never touched his eyes. "Play something for us, something lively. Brighten the place up." A manager appeared, a sheen of panic on his forehead. "Sir, perhaps I can call the evening's pianist. He's on his break." "Nonsense," the millionaire boomed. "She'll do. It's simple enough, isn't it? Even a waitress can tinkle a few keys. Consider it part of the service experience. I'll make it worth your while." He drew a thick money clip from his pocket and laid a single, large denomination note on the table's edge. It was a command, a test, and a humiliation, all wrapped in crisp currency. The woman looked from the manager's pleading face to the money, to the millionaire's smug certainty. For a long second, the only sound was the distant whir of the city's transit lines. Then, without a word, she set her tray down on a service stand, walked to the piano, and sat on the bench. The millionaire leaned back, sharing a triumphant glance with his guests. See asterisk. His expression said, everything has a price, and everything can be made to perform asterisk. She did not adjust the bench. She simply placed her hands on the keys, her work-roughened fingers a stark contrast to the ivory. She took a breath and closed her eyes. The first note was not a note. It was a resonance, so deep and pure it seemed to vibrate in the bones of every listener. It hung in the air, a physical thing. Then came another, and another, not a melody yet, but a structure, a scaffold of sound being built in the silence between heartbeats. The millionaire's smirk faltered. This was no simple tune. Her hands began to move. What flowed from the piano was not music as the diners understood it. It was a memory of wind across a vast, violet plain under a double sunset. It was the complex, rhythmic pulse of a dying star, translated into harmonic minor scales that twisted in beautiful, aching ways. It was the loneliness of the deep void, not empty, but full of a terrible, quiet presence. The piece had patterns within patterns, melodies that echoed then fractured into breathtaking counterpoint, a mathematical and emotional symphony that spoke of distances too great for human ships to fathom. Every conversation in the restaurant had died. The kitchen doors had swung open, the staff frozen in place. The manager stood, forgotten, his mouth slightly agape. The millionaire felt a cold sweat trace his spine. This was impossible. This was the kind of music composed by galaxy-renowned maestros, played in the concert halls of Earth's capital. It was a language of the soul, and this woman, this waitress was fluent in its most profound dialect. Her body remained still, a conduit. The music swelled, carrying the audience into the crushing beauty of a nebulous birth, then plunged them into the silent terror of a black hole's event horizon, all conveyed through devastating shifts in tempo and dynamics. A young diner from a colony world felt a hot tear track through her makeup, homesick for a sky she hadn't seen in decades. A hardened business magnate found his breath caught, remembering a childhood dream of sailing ships, long buried under mountains of credit. And the millionaire? He heard something else. In the intricate, unforgiving architecture of the sound, he heard the echo of his own soul, laid bare. The music was a mirror, and it showed him not the powerful titan, but the small, grasping boy. The hollow deals, the friendships traded for advantage, the vast, echoing loneliness of a life spent collecting trophies that now felt as weightless as dust. Every note was a judgment, not of anger, but of profound, unanswerable truth. The money on the table edge was not just irrelevant, it was an obscenity, a laughable scrawl next to a masterpiece. The final movement arrived, not with a crashing crescendo, but with a slow, gentle deceleration, a series of resolved chords that felt like a ship coming to rest after a millennium-long journey. The last note faded into the air, leaving a silence so complete it was louder than the music. The woman lifted her hands from the keys. She opened her lunar gray eyes, stood, and walked back to her service stand. She picked up her tray and continued towards the kitchen, her steps soft on the polished floor. The spell broke. The restaurant erupted, not in applause at first, but in a collective, shuddering inhale. Then the applause came, thunderous, desperate, emotional. People rose from their chairs. The young colonist was openly weeping. The millionaire sat as if carved from salt. The applause felt like a physical pressure. He saw his companions looking at him not with respect, but with a kind of horrified pity. He saw the money, that foolish, flimsy note, still lying untouched. He had wanted to demonstrate his power, to turn a person into a prop. Instead, he had been the one unmade. His regret was not a simple embarrassment. It was a tectonic shift deep within him. He had ordered a window-dressing melody and had been shown the fabric of the universe. He had mistaken a starship captain for a deckhand. In his arrogance, he had demanded a parlor trick and received a revelation that left his carefully constructed world in ruins. The manager, recovering, rushed to the kitchen. He found the woman at the sink, her hands submerged in soapy water. That was incredible, he stammered. Who are you? Where did you learn to play like that? She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. The Conservatory of Sirius, she said, her voice quiet. Postdoctorate in xenomusicology. I mapped the harmonic tides of the Hyades drift for 5 years. The manager blinked. But why are you here? She lifted a clean plate, watching the light glide off its surface. The ship I was on had an incident. A long story. I needed quiet. I needed to hear human sounds for a while. Plates clinking. Familiar voices. Simple things. She set the plate down. The piano here is badly tuned. The B flat above middle C is particularly flat. Back in the dining room, the millionaire finally moved. With a hand that trembled slightly, he reached out and slowly pulled the currency note back from the edge of the table. He folded it once, then again, and tucked it into his pocket, as if hiding evidence. He could not meet anyone's eyes. When he spoke, his voice was a hollow thing, stripped of its earlier bravado. The check, please, he said to no one in particular. He left without dessert, without finishing his wine, walking through a room that no longer saw him as a titan, but as a cautionary tale. He had come to feast, but he left starving, his soul gnawed raw by a beauty he had been too blind to recognize until it was too late. The memory of the music, and the profound, silent dignity of the woman who had played it, would haunt him forever, a ghost in the empty halls of his fortune. He had sought to command a performance, and in return, had been given a lesson he would spend the rest of his life trying, and failing, to forget.